I really would like just to share a little bit about my experience, about how I lived and made myself get through the process, because some of you know that, I mean, I spent many years not being able to do anything. I was really very sick for 15 years the first time. And so much so, my immune system broke from being in an extremely stressful job. And one of the results was I had to live in isolation for 5 years and wear this. Regardless of where I went or what I did, I had to wear this. And it would scare people. And I got to the place where I would be able to say, you know, especially children, I would get down to them and I would let them touch it. And I said, it's not going to hurt you. I'm not really healthy right now. I'm sick. And I have to wear this because I don't want to make other people sick. That was the best way to say it. It was really because I couldn't tolerate their smell. I couldn't stand any fragrance. I couldn't stand any chemical. I couldn't stand anything. And so living in isolation for 5 years, let me tell you, I threw my Bible in the drawer how many times? And I said, poosh, I am done with this, because I was not making progress. So anyway, it turned out that always, within a few months, God would start pulling me back. And I would find myself saying a prayer like, oh my gosh, Lord, I'm so tired. And I would stop, because I would I can't, I'm not going there. And eventually, it got to the place where I just could not live any longer with those books in the drawers, and I had to pull the Bible out. I learned a great deal during that time. Whew. You know, during these challenging times, the one thing I had to remember, and I think we all need to remember, is that God's the driver of the tractor.
Yeah.
I mean, He may be the one turning the press, but only because we're experiencing things that just come along in life from way back in the garden. And it's really interesting, because when this came to me, it was just, the garden is where this all started, you know. So this is all about, you are God's garden. So God knows what He's doing. He knew what He was doing then, and He knows what He's doing now. And our identity is critical to understanding His perspective of who we are in Him, and not focusing on our own perspective, because our own perspective can really get us in trouble. The experience we've had are important because they teach us. But we can conquer them if we stay focused on Him. It's when we want to walk away, it's when we don't want to do it anymore, when we're tired, that we have to commit to just the standing and the staying there, because you've got to know. I thought, well, if I just stand, then I'm defeated. No, it's a military term. When they say stand, they're holding their ground. They're not going forward, but they're not going backward either, okay? So knowing your identity is what I call, God gave me the word strategy. It is a strategy. Identity is a strategy. It just is, because if you know what that is, then, you know, you've got a lot of the game won. So how and why? The resurrected Jesus lives in us. He's the alive seed in us, okay? Your DNA changed when He went to the cross. But it's going to change purposely and intentionally if you say yes. And when you say yes to Him and you get saved, it's a done deal. Your DNA is the same DNA as His, because He lives in us. It's like alive, like a flourishing garden. We want our garden to flourish, you know. So we have to stay focused on the fact that his DNA is in us. And why does God make us his garden? Because he wants to redeem us back to him. He has redeemed us back to him. But we are the garden. And so this is where all the work is done. The work is done in the garden. This is going to be a hard statement, but this came to me this week, and it was, so just take it in, but, just don't let it be the major thing that you get out of this. Let's stop being impressed with our problems. Let's stop being impressed with our problems. We live with them so much that they just consume us. So the more we allow that, the more we give them power. We give them power to grow into some kind of fruit that we don't want. And it's a fruit that's hard. So we need to begin to value the process. And that's what I had to learn over all those years, was the process. You don't get a good garden overnight. It takes this whole set of circumstances to bring upon a good garden. So align yourself with the process. Let it know that it is not a punishment. It is not anything more than just the process of life. Look at it as an upgrade. It is an upgrade. It doesn't feel like it. Circumstances don't look like it, but it is, because God is working your garden. Your garden is valuable to him. And when your garden flourishes, all the glory be to him. Like I said before, out of all that fruit comes a lot of sweet stuff. It's down the road maybe, but it's going to come, so don't give up on that. Our mind is a garden. And are our current thoughts going to get us to the end of our destiny? What we're called to do. If you're feeding it positive thoughts, that's really good. But if you have a tendency to go the negative way, it's not going to get you very far, because the negative is like sour water on your garden. Your garden needs to have nourishing, sweet, fresh water. And you're lucky I didn't ask you all to pour it over each other's head, because I thought of that. I did. I thought, oh, wouldn't that be something if we just turned it, okay, just pour it over your next person's head? I don't think.
Well, that's
so. Anyway,
baptizing.
okay. See, I can be a little feisty at times. So remember the water you took in. It's the nutrient. Your soil needs to be watered, and with good things. And you have to control the weeds. And if you have the mind of Christ, we have the mind of Christ, we really shouldn't have any trouble with controlling the weeds. We really shouldn't. Because with the mind of Christ, and if we stay focused on him, it's bound to be a victory. And I love this saying. Your mind is like a phone. You're the one that talks to it most. You get that? Your mind is like a phone. You are the one that talks to it the most. And I saw that and I thought, ooh, I gotta use that. It's really good. Now, Scripture's just loaded with all kinds of things about gardens and valleys and trees and all these kinds of things. And I could just go tons of scriptures, but I am going to do a few, because I always think it's important to go back there, because everything is based on that. So Colossians 2, 6 and 7. Just as you received Jesus Christ as Lord, continue to live in him, rooted and growing in him. This is what strengthens your faith as you were taught. And don't forget to overflow with thankfulness. Then there's Deuteronomy 18, and it's telling us that he came before us, and he also became. He not only came, but he became when he died on the cross. He became. So if he came before us, he must surely know where this plow is going. I mean, because he's not going to let us just drift off. You know, he knows what's going on. And he prepared the way. But we don't have to work really to please him, but we really should want to work to please him. And I think that's a whole nother thing, because when we find our true identity in him, we're going to want to. We're just not going to think we have to. And then Genesis 1:26, when God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created him. I just always have loved that, because they chose, just think of how incredible that is that they made a decision to create us in their image. I mean, that to me is just, that just kind of like takes my mind into a whole nother realm. And then 2 Corinthians 4. This chapter is all about the treasures found in jars of clay. We are jars of clay. And I'm glad, because the more water we take in, the more we absorb, the better off we're going to be. And then the clay can be changed. You don't become stiff and brittle and break at every little bitty thing that goes on. You know, you begin to be that malleable piece of clay that just kind of says, okay, this is the way things are right now, and I need to just kind of flow with what's going on, and that's good. So we should let him do the watering. Let his water flow over us constantly to change who we are. Not so much for our sake, yes, for our sake, but really, he wants us to be that way. He wants to change us. And we belong to him, so why not? I mean, why wouldn't he want to do that? This is Isaiah 40:3-8. A thunderous voice cries out in the wilderness. Of course, that was John the Baptist during that time. Prepare the way for Yahweh's arrival. Okay, the way. Okay, make a highway straight through the desert for our God. He's already prepared the road, and it's a highway. It's not a lowway, it's a highway. Every valley will be raised up, every mountain brought low. The rugged terrain will become level ground, and the rough places a plain. Then Yahweh's radiant glory will be unveiled. That's them saying that Jesus was going to come. Jesus' glory was going to be revealed. So John the Baptist first, then comes Jesus, okay? Then a voice cries out, and I ask, what should I say? Isaiah says, all people are as frail as grass, and their elegance is like a wilting wildflower. The grass withers, the flower fades, when the breath of Yahweh blows upon it. The people are just like grass. But even though grass withers and the flower fades, the word of our God stands strong forever. When I read it in that version, I just thought, I really feel I need to share that. And then there's Romans 12:1-2, which urges us to be living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God, which is our spiritual worship. I mean, it's our spiritual worship. When I first read that a long time ago, I was like, I had to do a little study on it, because it was like, it's our spiritual worship. It's a way of praising him. Just doing that in itself, we can be a living sacrifice. I mean, he offered up his life, so I don't know that, I don't have to, but I want to do whatever I do for his glory. It's important, I think, that we get to that place, that we understand ourselves enough and who we are in our identity, that we're joyous about doing that. And then there's 1 Corinthians 15:38. Therefore, my dear daughters, stand firm, let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that our labor in the Lord is not in vain. And then we are co-workers with God, and you are God's cultivated garden. The house he is building, that again is passion. And your garden has the potential to reap many rewards. And 1 Peter 1:23, you have been born again, not of a perishable, but of an imperishable seed through the living and enduring Word of God. The alive seed resides in us. It's alive, so we need to really let it grow. And now this is my closing, and then we're going to do one other thing. Ooh, it's getting late. But I did this class in 2012 in Vancouver, Washington, to our life group. And since then, this version is much expanded from that version. But when I went back and looked at it, there was just something I had said that I thought would be worthwhile ending this in, and I had written down. I am sure you have seen what soaking a failing plant can do for the plant. Soaking is good, but a steady flow is healthier for the plant, being ourselves. And I call that being diligent, putting forth a steady effort. We will find in his word, in the way we go back to him and spend time with him, in the garden, doing the things we need to do, communicating with him like from the very beginning, God communicated with Adam and Eve. He's still doing it today. So we need to keep moving. We need to keep going into that process. We can't stop and just let things be. We have to keep going.